Hi everyone, Dr. Deskins here. I want to go over the LP3 seminar assessment for mind mapping. Mind mapping may be familiar to you or it may be new. Regardless, I want to go over and share this video, a brief PowerPoint presentation, just to show you the different types of mind mapping and what they represent. And then I also have another video I've posted in the news section that will hopefully help give you further examples, because a lot of times, when we see how these are created, it helps us to understand better how we can effectively create these different, use these tools to our advantage. And so here, so I have a PowerPoint presentation here, like I said, on mind mapping. And I actually found this presentation through Kennesaw State University, and I scaled it down some from what they had, just to give you a basic overview. And so what we have here is that mind mapping is your visual representation of related information. It helps structure and organize the information, and it basically branches out, or as it says here, radiates from a central node. So you see in the image here, it's got some emoticon and other little images around, and this image is kind of squishy and quite detailed. But if you can see the overall structure in the center of a mind map, you have your general concept and idea. And then from there, you literally just branch out like you would branch out if you were looking from say, looking down at the top of a tree. You would look at it the same way. A mind map is technically created to mimic the human brain in the same manner of having a central node, and then everything branches out from there. So like you have your memory receptors and everything that branch out from your brain, and everything, little fine areas develop off of there. So for example, I'm going to go on to the next one, but you can see here, like I said, there's a lot of different, and this looks kind of jumbled, so I'm going to move to the next one. Ways to use your mind map is through brainstorming, strategic planning on projects. Normally it's the same process that you would use if you were sitting around a table, talking with a group of people, trying to come up with ideas, trying to just really help develop an overall structure of how you're going to approach your project. And then it also involves process exploration, where it says, you uncover your interdependencies and potential collaborations within the project. And it's like where you could track your project timeline, the roles and responsibilities of everyone involved. Perhaps there's certain things that maybe your stakeholders would do. So in addition to any software that you may use for project management, when you create a mind map, you'll also, it's just another visual representation of how you would do this imagery. The components, now there's different types. There's one argument map. The point shows pros and cons of an argument. Same process of just having a conversation with a group of people, and when you're trying to hash out a particular project or a topic, you have assumptions or premises, and the statement's generally accepted as true. You don't want to be presenting false information, so you kind of have to slide that in there. You've got your co-premises, where you've got additional supporting assumptions, your reasons, objects, and your objections, excuse me, and your rebuttals. Now, yes, I know that this is a very fuzzy image, but just I want to give you an overall structure. You don't need to worry about reading the text. And this is just one type of argument mapping, just to show you an overall screenshot of what it may look like. Some of these may look familiar to you if you are familiar with seeing an organizational chart within your company. It's the same process. It shows a form of order. Here's another example of a mind map, which is definitely more clear, where it just says example text. But here you have in the center in red an example of where you would have your text with your main thought. And from there, you just create branches that would be, create interest to go out, and you color code at each level. So from the red, you may have 2 main objectives that are in the yellow or the gold color, depending on your monitor color. But where you have example text at the top and the bottom of the red box, this is where you would break that center idea, the central node, down into maybe 2 other areas. And then from there, you just kind of branch out. And then again, you can color code these in order of importance. And as you go out from the center, it gets smaller and smaller, just like how a tree would be. Normally near the trunk of a tree, you have thicker branches, and then as smaller branches come out of those thicker branches, and even as the thick branch grows out, it tapers down. It's the same concept here when you're creating mind maps. The more important topics and information on your mind map are closer to the center of that central node, and then everything that builds off of that is still important, but there are smaller aspects of your overall project. Why we use a mind map? We use mind maps to clarify ideas for brainstorming, organization forming, and decision making. Here's another example of another form of a mind map. You will, if you ever watch any other videos on mind mapping and instructions on how to create them, or if you happen to have software that creates mind mapping, normally you want to stay away from using straight lines. For example, if you look, everything that's branching off of the colored rectangular boxes from that red center oval area where it has 15 common mind map elements, as it branches out into the 3rd level, be out here, if you can see where my mouse is pointing, where you have the lines, and over here on the left, it's easier to see these lines in pink and purple. It's okay to have these, just for your organization, but one thing that I've seen, and I do tend to agree with, is when you're creating your mind map, it's better if you're using maybe like a wavy line or having some type of a curve to your line, because that helps. Again, it connects with your brain, which is why it is called mind mapping. It helps us to grasp the information easier, because quite honestly, when you're looking at this type of a mind map and you're looking down on the left-hand side, I mean, you can look on the right too, but those lines are in orange, yellow, and green, and they're a little bit more difficult to see. So I'm going to focus on the left side of the screen, where you see the pink and purple and the blue underlying mini branches that have stemmed out from these different, from the 2nd levels here, where you have the colored rectangular boxes. When you're looking at all these lines of text, it kind of starts to blend into itself, and you can actually lose interest or end up having people skipping over certain areas. This is why you want to help kind of create a little bit of interest. This is another example, excuse me, of mind mapping. You can create your own mind map. You don't have to purchase any software or particularly have any software. You can create these. As you can see, they're just in boxes and in different lines, or you can create arrows back and forth. And if you've been in project management long enough, then you probably notice that it looks a lot similar to what we use in project management, the order of importance on how to fast track our projects. And so when you're looking at this type of mind mapping software, again, you see you have mind mapping software over here to the left, which is your main idea, which normally would be in the center of your mind map. From here, you have your 2nd level, which is, it breaks it down. Okay, the 3 areas you want to focus on would be hierarchical, you have creative and educational. And then from each of these main levels, you branch out again. And okay, you're going to break down, say we'll go to creative. And you look and you see it's got a website to bubble.us and Coggle and MindMeister. So these are obviously websites that are probably going to creative websites that pertain to this particular topic. But at this level, between creative and educational, you see it just stops, and you don't have anything else over here in the right area that branches off of these thoughts. So there may not be anything beyond this level. However, when you look at the hierarchical level, you see that it breaks down into open source and commercial. And then from open source, you've got FreeMind, FreePlane, and commercial, you have MindJet and XMind. And again, these are just particular tools that this other library had used as an example. But hopefully it's helping you to get the idea of how you would create your mind map. And this is just another screenshot of a different type of a mind map. And again, you can be as creative as you want. Just make sure that the information is not jumbled together where people can't read it once you present it to them. Obviously, this is a screenshot, and the image is stretched out to fill the screen. And but again, it just gives you another format. Again, here's another one. This is an example they used on the Carner Blue butterfly. And whereas you don't have this mind map per se, where you don't have the central node, you're still talking about the butterfly. And so what they've done is they've taken the butterfly and they've broken it down into 4 main categories. And then you see from the 4 lines here that are branching out, again, from this, imagine a tree, the branches that come out of the butterfly, it breaks it down. You have a scientific name, you have life stages, the pine barren regions, and then the endangered stages. And then from each of these areas, it breaks it down into, you know, even further definition on how this butterfly is made up, where it comes from, life stages, all that kind of information. And so these are just different examples, again, of how you would present and develop your own mind map. Now, a good example of a mind map are like the ones I showed you, or on here on the left, you see we're talking about weather. And then from weather, we have another category. We're going to talk about storms. And then when you break down the type of a storm, it goes down into 4 additional subcategories. You've got wind, lightning, rain, and snow. And then from there, under wind, you could have possible tornadoes. Under lightning, you can have fire and thunder. Under rain, you could end up having a rainbow. And then under the snow category, snow can now it can also go parallel to each other. So they can go back and forth, because we know that if it's cold, that rain can turn into snow. And then when it is snowing, and if the environment and atmosphere starts to get warmer, the snow will turn into rain. And then from the rain, you have rainbow, or you could possibly have a flood. Now, a bad example over here on the right, a bad example of a mind map, and one you don't want to get involved in, and you need to be very careful. Don't have all these crisscrossing lines back and forth, because if you can look at the 2 different types of mind maps, you can see how the one on the right causes a lot of confusion. And even though the order is still technically the same, it's definitely really hard to read. Your eye wants to normally read top to bottom, left to right, right to left. In this example, for the bad example, the wind almost looks like it's at the top of, or the center focus of your mind map, instead of weather being the focus. And so this can cause confusion. And so you want to stick with direct lines. And again, like I said, you don't have to use straight lines. You can create interest when you're developing a mind map, but just make sure that you have a particular order so that people can see the structure, that it's pretty self-explanatory without you having to go in an explanation other than you expanding on the idea. And you would do this with any of the projects that you're going to develop. On this next slide, it's an image, and even though it is blurry because it is blown up again, on concept mapping. This one is another one I would consider to be a confusing concept mapping, but it's just showing the overall concept on how it's a Chinese law, a law in China that was developed, and it just shows the different concepts of it. The overall development of your mind map would still be the same. So that pretty much ends that review. And like I said, it was going to be a very quick review on what mind mapping is about. So that was a quick review on what mind mapping is, and hopefully that gives you a better understanding. I do have another video that is about 5 minutes long for you to watch that is also posted in the news feed. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I hope that this was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in the classroom. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.